So good evening, everyone. My name is Colin Scott, and I'm the director of the Center for Indigenous Conservation and Development Alternatives. It's headquartered at McGill University, but we have more than 40 Indigenous partner communities and organizations on 4 continents. We have researchers affiliated with several universities in Quebec, several more in Canada, and throughout the Americas, and also in Africa, South Asia, and Oceania. We're very happy to be co-sponsoring, co-organizing this event with Recherche Autochtone au Québec. And we're just thrilled to have you with us. Some of you have traveled from far and some from near, and we're really looking forward to our communication and collaboration over the course of this evening and tomorrow. Before I go further, just a technical point. We will have simultaneous translation available throughout. I think the proceedings this evening are likely to be all in English, but if anyone wants to avail of translation to French, there is a table just on the other side of the translation booth with headsets. And then tomorrow the proceedings will really be in both French and English, and so I expect there'll be more demand for the equipment tomorrow. We're here because the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement and its sequel agreement in 1975 and its sequel agreement in 78, the Northeastern Quebec Agreement, have been transformative. They've been transformative not only for the communities that engaged in those first modern treaties, comprehensive land claim settlements, but really in subsequent constitutional context, we understand them to be treaties in the constitutional sense. The first signed since most of Quebec and Canadian society concluded some point in the 1920s that treaties were no longer the basis on which the mainstream would relate to Indigenous nations. So the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement, the Northeastern Quebec Agreement, were a transformational moment. And they have, of course, reconfigured relations of property, of economy, of self-government in the nations who signed on to them. They have also transformed the constitutional and political landscape for other groups throughout Quebec and across Canada. We didn't want this event to be a simply retrospective kind of assessment or celebration or commemoration. It's equally forward-looking, future-oriented, and so we settled on a title or a subtitle: "The First 50 Years." We know that treaties, in particular these modern treaties, are not once once and for all deals. They have routinely generated subsequent supplementary, complementary agreements, many of them themselves with force of treaty in the constitutional sense. So the 50th anniversary we take to be a golden moment to reflect on lessons learned but also possible futures. Before handing over to my co-organizer, Émile Duchesne, to introduce this evening's speakers, I want to acknowledge our fellow organizers. We have a committee that includes, in addition to Émile and myself, Harvey Feit, Jasmine Habib, Caroline Hervé, Robert Lanary, and Paul Wilkinson. And also a huge thanks to Catherine Laruelle Aranguis, who has been just phenomenal in organizing, keeping us organized and on track. So I'll turn it to you, Émile.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Émile Duchesne, professor of anthropology at Université Laval. Je voulais dire qu'il y a de la... Bon, Colin le dit en anglais, mais il y a de la traduction simultanée de l'anglais vers le français. S'il y en a pour qui c'est nécessaire, peut aller chercher les cases d'écoute en arrière. Donc voilà, le message est fait. Donc, thank you very much, everyone, to be here. I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So maybe for our technician, it's the cue to open the Zoom for Philip. So our first speaker is Philip Awashish. Sadly, he could not be with us tonight, but we will have his presentation by Zoom. Philip was a negotiator of the JBNQA in 1971 at 22 years old. He was among the main organizers of the Cree response against the James Bay project. His effort led to the signing of the JBNQA on November 75. Over the years, Philip Awashish has been Deputy Grand Chief, Executive Chief, and Vice-Chairman of the Grand Council of the Crees. He was also, for some time, Chief of his own community at Mistissini. So it's a great pleasure to have such an important person tonight delivering us his reflection 50 years after the signing of the James Bay project. So let's have Philip.
This 1600s, 1700s, Europeans began colonizing North America with the use their whole land to obtain land and resources directly build their own empires and economy. They did so in completely subverting this respect of systems, rights and interests of the indigenous people who used to occupy the land. When faced with explorers arrived from the shores of Louise, about 400 years ago, they immediately claimed and took possession of our land. Colonization of our land began in the 1600s, and we knew that the French and English powers and people weren't going to go back to England and France. Colonization of our land by the French and the English powers has led to the denial of many rights and a dreadful history of relations between the EU, VST, and the native governments. We Université and other First Nations across Canada came through this dreadful past of colonization, which included dispossession of our lands, imperialism, denial of rights, politics of exclusion, forced relocation, eviction, systematic racism, marginalization, and cultural genocide and assimilation. For centuries, since the arrival of Europeans to the shores of our homeland, this dreadful history has repeated itself. During consultations with the EU on the JBNQA agreement, an elder came to me and said, Negotiator. Since this elders spoke only the human or street language, he certainly was not saying we are Crees, because Crees is a label the English gave us. And the elder was not speaking, not saying we are Indians. Federal government defined us Indians under their law known as the Indian Act. The elder is saying Venusiano was a huge channel, with huge means, human beings. So he's saying we are human beings, persons, and a people. And here in this dreadful past, the elder was implying that as human beings, persons, and the people, we shouldn't be treated this way. The JBNQA agreement is much more than a settlement over the construction and operations of a hydroelectric project. What's more important, the University have put an end to a repeat of our dreadful past in history in our relations with Quebec, Canada, as a result of colonialism and its tragic consequences. Because of the still lingering effects of colonization, the EU had many regional and national challenges to overcome, to make dramatic changes in the power relationships with the former colonizers who have become citizens of Canada and Quebec, modern colonizers. The JBNQA agreement has a major purpose, purportedly settles the centuries conflicts over land and rights between EU governments and industries. When we negotiated the terms and provisions of the JBNQA agreement and its related agreements, the Université agreed to share their land and its natural resources. Subsequently, over the past 50 years, the implementation of the JBNQA agreement has led to access to University for land and rapid development of natural resources. Many roads have been constructed throughout the University for land and rapid development of natural resources. The complex La Grande 75 has been constructed in this operation with the project contemplated in the hydroelectric development project. Mining and commercial forestry operations have come in and are operating in the East. We have negotiated ways and means of coping with and participating in the development of natural resources of UST. In addition to La Paix de Vrap and its related governance agreements, we have agreed to share the governance of UST through the establishment of the UST adjacent Bay regional government. Over the past 50 years, the UST have faced social and political, environmental, economic, and other problems related to rapid development of the UST, the construction of vast roads networks have provided access to UST and have resulted in an influx of outsiders and products. That's external and encroachment. That's visible. Disrupts the health of EU communities and the hunting territory system of EU hunters and the abundant distribution of fish and game. Hydrographic development and commercial forestry development have eroded the land and resource base of UST. Many EU and families EU families have felt tremendous sense of loss over the past 5 decades. As hydroelectric development have resulted in impacts such as the displacement and relocation of EU communities, flooding and loss of valuable hunting territories and burial grounds, loss of wildlife habitat, loss of major rivers, loss of fish and game, loss of drinking water, and loss of cultural and spiritual sites. In addition, the vast clear-cutting activities of commercial forestry components have resulted in a great loss of valuable hunting territories and wildlife habitat. While there has been some employment for EU in the hydroelectric and mineral development, EU need more benefits from natural resource development in UST. There are many serious problems to solve as EU UST seek balance economic and resource development with the desire to retain and maintain key elements of our cultural heritage, EU way of life, UC, and EU student, which is EU way of doing things. Over the past 50 years, with a stronger feeling of who we are, we have restored our cultural integrity and historical identity. We have gained recognition and protection of our rights, and we have restored our self-governing status. We are a nation and a people with a homeland rather than 10 separate bands and villages. We use the term Inu to indicate how inland Inu and coastal EU people have come together. It is our understanding as one nation and one people we have empowered ourselves to speak and act for ourselves in our contacts and relations with other peoples and governments. We have taken a rightful place in Canadian society as Inu, Usti. In this manner, we will continue to protect our way of life in the traditional wage economy, our land, and Inuit too. As a negotiator and a signatory of the JBNQA Quebec Agreement, I am so often asked, how did we do it? What drove us to seek social justice through political action, litigation, and negotiation against tremendous odds and barriers? A Lakota elder, Black Elk, once said, consider the whole of life as one, the seen and the unseen, spirit and matter. So I want to answer the question of how we did it from a spiritual perspective, seeing the unseen and spirit. After all, there is a spiritual perspective in our journey for social justice. Belief has empowered the EU by giving them unshakable resolve to respond to any situation with extraordinary resilience, tenacity, and determination. It's belief that brought us from a dreadful past to a better present and a hopeful future. I believe in our worthiness, dignity, somebodyness, and humanity. I believe that we are human beings, persons, people, and a nation. I believe that we, as human beings, persons, and the people, have rights and freedoms. I believe in ourselves and identity as EU. I believe in our culture and the ways we call each doing. I believe in our traditional and historical homeland we call UG. I believe in our collective experiences and common history from which we learn lessons, determine our collective vision and path in our journey for social justice and a better future. I believe in our collective vision that guides and directs us in our journey for social justice. I believe it. I believe in the compassion and love amongst our people, for love ties the thread of union amongst each one of us, and compassion brings people closer to one another. I believe that we as individuals, families, communities, and people have capabilities and confidence to, to move forward together in our journey. I believe in our leaders, men, women, youth, stewards, hunters, and elders who share the collective vision and work together to pursue and achieve our collective vision. I believe in the compassion, sincerity, humanity of the human beings who have supported and helped us in our journey. I believe a conviction that together in our unity as one people, one nation, we can change the course of history for a better future for the present and future generations of we new community. I believe in a power greater than ourselves. Isamando, Great Spirit. For things that happen do not happen by chance. Yes, it's belief that brought us so a dreadful past to a better present and a hopeful future. For we have walked by faith, not by sight, in our journey for social justice. Thank you. Merci, amigos.
Thank you, Philip. That was truly inspiring, and it was an honor to have you with us tonight. Now we will follow with our next speaker, who's Louise Nattawappio, chief of the Naskapi Nation of Kawawachikamach since 2024. She holds a Bachelor of Education from McGill and spent years developing and teaching the Naskapi curriculum. So it's really a great honor to have Louise with us tonight. She traveled from far away to come with us. So please join me to welcome her on stage.
Thank you. Wachiakmashwa, Louise Nattawappio und ich Hadagon, Neo Iojmashko, Kawawachikamach. Good evening. My name is Louise. I am the chief of the Naskapi Nation of Kawawachikamach. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional and unceded land of the JBNQA Nation. Tiohtià:ke, or Montreal, has long been a place of meeting and exchange for the JBNQA Nation and many other First Peoples. As we reflect on the treaties, rights, and the responsibilities carried between nations, I want to honor the JBNQA as caretakers of this land. It is an honor for me to be here today as we reflect on the 50 years of modern treaties in Canada. While we recognize this milestone, we also take this moment to reflect on our struggle, honor our resilience, and reaffirm the path we continue to walk toward self-determination. Before I continue, I want to take a moment to honor one of our elders, John Mameanskum, and Colin will read his speech.
John Mameanskum was invited to be with us this evening, and he wrote to say that unfortunately, due to health and physical mobility issues, he regrets being unable to attend this event. So he sent these words. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and other participants of this historic event. First of all, I'd like to dedicate this 50th anniversary to the late Billy Diamond and former Cree chiefs, past and present, for their efforts. I also acknowledge the efforts of the Inuit leadership, especially former Senator Mr. Charlie Watt. It is a great honor to have been invited to this important event commemorating the signing of the first land claims settlement in Quebec. A subsequent land claim settlement was signed by the Naskapi First Nation in 1978. A milestone in Quebec Aboriginal history then, but with controversy. During the weekend of the 1st and 2nd of November of this year, the Kitigan-Zibi First Nation announced in the filing of a land claim in Western Quebec and the Gatineau area. It should be an interesting period for future Quebec land claims, since other land claims agreements, such as the Gootson First Nation of Richmond, BC, have set a legal precedent and have non-native residents within their lands nervous. The Seychelles First Nation Self-Government Agreement also has a non-native population within their traditional lands. Future claim settlements will require a sufficient land base and multi-year economic development funding on top of their settlement monies to counter economic changes and disparities in their respective regions of Canada. Although the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement of 1975 and the Northeastern Quebec Agreement of 1978 included settlement monies and access to employment training and other provincial and federal programs, the James Bay Cree and the Naskapi First Nations signed 25-year community economic development agreements with the government of Quebec. In conclusion, I wish the James Bay Cree and my Northern Quebec neighbors continued success in their future economic development endeavors. Wachia, Yame, Kwe, merci, thank you.
Thank you, Johnny, for your words and for the part you played in that chapter of our nation's history. Your presence then and your voice today remind us that treaties are lived experiences carried by the people who were there. Today, I would like to share some of the history of our people and our nation's effort to shape a better future for our present and future generations. I will begin by talking about the history of our people, the Naskapi people. History is not just something that happened. It is something very sincere we carry in our language, in our stories and legends, in our connection to the land, in our struggle and in our survival. For generations, the Naskapi were nomadic and followed the caribou herds from the Hudson Bay in the west to the Labrador coast in the east, and from the Angava Bay in the north to the vicinity of what is now known as Labrador City in the south. For centuries, we moved with the caribou, following the herds across the vast tundra and taiga of what is now Quebec and Labrador. We refer to our traditional territory as Nojamusi, which means the territory where we hunt. Caribou was and will always be more than sustenance for the Naskapi. It is a central part of our identity. Every part of the caribou was used, nothing was wasted. Our ancestors lived by the laws of the land, laws of harmony, balance, and respect, never taking more than was needed. But in time, outside forces imposed a different kind of law, one that sought to control the land rather than live with it. For centuries, our people moved freely, living in small independent groups, coming together during peak caribou seasons, trading at places like Fort Naskapi, Fort Chimo, and later Fort Mackenzie. Our traditions were passed down through stories, the Bajamona, our true histories, and Adiuhna, our sacred legends. These stories were more than words. They were our maps, our teachings, our connection to the past. We were a people of the land until the land was taken from us. Colonial powers, first through the fur trade, then through mining and hydroelectric development, saw our land not as a home, but as a resource to be exploited. In 1831, the Hudson's Bay Company set up a trading post at Fort Chimo. It was the beginning of forced dependence on European goods, the introduction of disease, and the disruption of our way of life. As our people shifted to meet the growing demands of the fur trade, food became scarce, leading to mass starvation, and that claimed nearly half of the Naskapi population at the time. In the early 1900s, our ancestors were relocated again and again from Fort Naskapi to Fort Mackenzie, from Fort Mackenzie to Fort Chimo, not for our benefit, but for the convenience of the fur traders and settlers. By the mid-1900s, our traditional life was becoming impossible. The caribou herds we depended on were disappearing. With the rise of industrial development, we were being pushed aside, assimilated, and forgotten. Finally, in 1956, our people were forcibly relocated from Fort Chimo, known today as Kujwak, to Shefferville, a mining town built on our ancestral land without our consent. It was a journey of hardship. Our people walked for miles. Many fell ill and some never made it. When we arrived, there were no homes waiting for us, no schools for our children, no health care, no support for our people. Our forced relocation reminds me of the Trail of Tears, another chapter of Indigenous displacement and suffering. While our experiences were different, the pain of losing our land, our way of life, and our people is a struggle we share. The weight of that journey still weighs heavy on our nation today. In 1978, we entered into the Northeastern Quebec Agreement, the NEQA, with the Government of Quebec and Canada, and others joining the Cree and Inuit under the James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement, the JBNQA. These agreements were the first modern treaties in Canada, and they reshaped the relationship between Indigenous nations, Quebec, and Canada. The provisions in the JBNQA and the NEQA are mandatory and binding on Quebec and Canada, and the rights granted by both treaties to the Naskapi provide constitutional protection. The NEQA was negotiated under immense pressure in a landscape where balance of power was entirely uneven. The governments came to the table with all the power, and we, a small nation, were facing the risk of losing our lands entirely, without recognition or compensation. In exchange for rights and resources, we were forced to surrender our claims, titles, and interests to vast ancestral lands that had sustained our people for generations. The NEQA is also vast, complex, and difficult to fully grasp even today, let alone at a time when our people were navigating a system built without them, in a language and legal framework unfamiliar to many. Despite the circumstances that surrounded the negotiating process, the NEQA gave the Naskapi something invaluable, a voice. At the time, we were one of the smallest Indigenous communities in Quebec and Canada. We could have been forgotten or left aside without recognition. Without the NEQA, our voice would have been far weaker, perhaps silenced entirely. Our place at the negotiation tables would have been uncertain, if we had a place at all. Instead, the NEQA ensured that we were recognized as a distinct nation with the right to advocate for our interests, to negotiate on our own behalf, and to shape our future rather than having having it dictated to us. We recognize the strength and determination of our ancestors, who, despite overwhelming odds, ensured that the Naskapi Nation was not only acknowledged, but had a framework to govern itself and fight for its future generations. The NEQA also placed key responsibilities back into the hands of the Naskapi. It laid the foundation for the Naskapi self-governance, giving our elected council not distant government officials the power to oversee health, education, social services, and economic development in Kawawachikamach. With this came greater financial autonomy, long-term funding agreements, and the ability to determine our own path, not as subjects of the Indian Act, but as a nation responsible for itself. In 1983, we built Kawawachikamach, a community 12 kilometers northeast of Shefferville, one that stands today as a testament to our resilience. Kawawachikamach is the only Naskapi community. In 1999, we officially became the Naskapi Nation of Kawawachikamach, asserting our identity and governance. And so, we marked 50 years of margin treaties. We ask, where do we go from here? Despite the hardships our people have endured, one thing has never changed. The Naskapi Nation has always governed itself. Long before colonial laws, before treaties, we made our own decisions. We led our own people. We shaped our own future. Today, we are negotiating to affirm that we already know, what we already know, that the Naskapi Nation is self-governing, that we have the right to make decisions about our land, our future, and our identity. But this time, we are doing it in our terms. For too long, governments have dictated the conditions of our survival. Now we are defining the conditions of our success. Our nation is currently advancing its own constitution, written by the Naskapi for the Naskapi. At the same time, we are negotiating with the government of Canada to secure greater self-governing powers, powers that go beyond what Canada was willing to recognize 50 years ago. For too long, the policies that governed us were created without us. We cannot undo the past, but we can refuse to let history repeat itself. But governance alone is not enough. Self-government means nothing if our people are still struggling. We must confront the challenges our nations face today and build solutions that reflect our values, our priorities, and our vision for the future for the generations to come. These challenges are not ours alone. They are felt by the First Nations across this country. And the fact that they are so widespread is deeply troubling and demands urgent actions. Number one, housing shortages. Our people cannot thrive without stable, safe housing. Overcrowding and lack of housing have become a crisis. We need real, long-term solutions to ensure that every Naskapi has a home. Number two, mental health and addiction. Decades of displacement and trauma from residential schools have left deep scars. Drug and alcohol-related issues have reached a breaking point, and our nation officially declared a state of emergency on April 16, 2024, following the tragic death of a young Naskapi girl. This is not just a crisis. It is a call for action, for healing, for support systems that come from within our own community. Number three, land rights. The fight for land did not end with the NEQA. We are still battling to protect what is ours, ensuring that our lands are respected, preserved, and never again used or taken from us without our consent. Number four, preserving our identity and culture and language. Our language is more than words. It is our history, our worldview, and our connection to each to each other. We must teach our children, reclaim our traditions, ensure that the Naskapi identity thrives for generations to come. Number 5, infrastructure deficits. Access to healthcare, transportation, education, and essential services remain a major challenge. For our community to grow, we need sustained investments in infrastructure that meets the needs of our people. Number 6, self-governance development. We are working toward a future where the Naskapi controls its own affairs on its own terms and its own land. Self-governance is not just about political recognition. It is about having the power and resources to make decisions that serve our people. Each of these challenges is a barrier to our self-determination. A strong self-government is not just about political recognition. It is about giving our people the power to build that reflects who we are. 50 years ago, modern treaties changed the legal landscape of Canada, but they did not change who we are. Former Grand Chief Ted Moses, who was a key Cree negotiator during the signing of the JBNQA, founder of the Cree School Board and longtime international representative for the Cree Nation at the United Nations, said something to me on Sunday that has stayed with me. He told me, "Tell them, the land is the law." Those words resonated deeply because they speak to a truth our nations have always known. Long before modern treaties, long before Canadian law, it was the land that shaped our teachings, our responsibilities, and our understanding of right and wrong. The land continues to guide us today. We call them modern treaties, but after 50 years, how modern are they really? The modern treaties of yesterday are becoming the historic treaties of tomorrow. And like all histories, they risk being frozen in time if they are not allowed to grow. Treaties are living agreements meant to expand and progress along the people they were made with. A treaty is not just a resolution of a dispute. It is the foundation of a relationship. And like any relationship, it must be nurtured, protected, and above all, made to evolve. Today, we call on the governments to respect and uphold Indigenous self-determination, not just in policy, but in practice. For too long, our people have been told where to live, how to work, and what to give in exchange for survival. But survival is not enough. We are here to thrive. We will protect our land. We will reclaim our language. We will heal our people. To our elders, our leaders, and our youth, we are the Naskapi Nation. We were here long before the treaties, and we will be here long after. Now, thank you all.
Now, Louise, for this very wonderful talk. Then we will have our last speaker of the night, Charlie Watt, an original negotiator of the JBNQA for the Inuit. Charlie Watt was a senator at the Canadian Senate from 1984 to 2018. He was also president of McGill for some time. He was nominated Officier de l'Ordre National du Québec in 1994. He was also president of Air Inuit. So it's very a great honor to have Charlie with us tonight, who just arrived from Kuujjuaq like an hour ago. So Charlie traveled from far away to come with us. So it's a great pleasure to have him tonight. So please, let's welcome Charlie Watt.
you know how to go. I know you don't understand me, but I thought it might be a good thing for me to say it in Inuktitut. I'm not going to give you the whole picture of what we went through. What I'm going to be focusing on mainly on the implementation side of the James B. Norton Quebec Agreement. The kind of problems, troubles, hardship that we are going through in regard to the implementation of the James B. Norton Quebec Agreement. One aspect of the agreement is missing is governance issue. Governance is the problem area. What I mean by that is the government of Quebec want to continue to have overriding authorities over the James B. Norton Quebec Agreement. That is one of our biggest problems that we have with the government of Quebec, at times also the government of Canada, by the way that they don't fully understand the nature of the people that they are dealing with. We know for a fact that the government of Canada have made an attempt to improve our relationship with the outside world. That is moving ahead, but is not all that successful at the moment, on account of the fact that the governance problems that we are dealing with, we still need to get to the point, get to the bottom of it, and deal with it directly, and see if we could come up with alternative way of interpreting the James B. Norton Quebec Agreement. As you probably have heard, that we have to go through the question of extinguishment, surrender, and released. Where does that come from? That comes from all the way back to 1912 Extension Act. So we have a long way to go in terms of trying to correct the things that has been done by the government of Canada and the fact that they are colonial approach is still here today and still being utilized to the full extent. This is an area that we have to deal with. What do we do then? What is it left for us to utilize and use it as a leverage to move forward in regards to self-determination? I hear people talking about self-government. I've been talking about the self-government almost from the day one of the time that we began to start dealing with the Hydro-Quebec issue. I remember the time when I discovered that the Robert Bourassa have a great deal, a huge intention of developing the North by way of extracting river and turn it into electricity and market that electricity to the outside. Here we are, as a people, Inuit, are still living with generators, power generators, not accessing the same thing what the rest of the Quebec population is enjoying. That is the electricity from the land. Clean energy, they call it. We don't have that. This is something that we need to work on. To deal with the government of Quebec, I guess we have no choice at the moment. Revenue sharing concept has never been discussed to the full extent. This is an area that I do believe can make a huge improvement to the James B. Norton Quebec Agreement. Being looked at by the rest of the world that we are operating with financial need, and that financial need is more like a handout from the government. We don't like that. That's not the type of relationship that we like to have. On that account, we most likely, as an Aboriginal people, not only the Inuit, the Cree, Naskapis, which Naskapis I grew up with before they were moved out of my community of Kuujjuaq. And at that time, it was called Fort Chimo. And we lost huge number of our people, that is Naskapis, moved out. As you heard the lady talking about, there was no home for them to go to. You also talked about John Mameanskum. And I remember John Mameanskum when I went to Shovaville to see whether they are interested in getting involved in the negotiations. I brought Joe Truma from Kuujjuaq. He's a Naskapi himself, but always lived in Kuujjuaq. My Naskapis were not good enough anymore because they left when I was quite young, and I can still speak a little bit of it, and I miss those people. And I sure would like to see them back to Kuujjuaq at times, but I think they are very well settled now where they at, and a very nice meeting you. On the account of where are the levers that we can look at in terms of advancing ourselves. You take a look at the Constitution itself. The Section 35 that we have negotiated, and that still have to be implemented. We should be using that to the full extent as a leverage to get to discuss the type of the Constitution that we have now, which the government are kind of reluctant, I would say very reluctant, to implement Section 35, the British North American Act. That probably is the mechanics that we need in order to advance the concern that we have and the kind of relationship that we have with the rest of the people in Canada, in the world. We need to improve ourselves. On the other side, they also have to improve themselves to be able to understand, clearly understand the kind of life that we live. Right now, we are going through the climate change. There is a very little understanding of a climate change that we are dealing with. We, Inuit in the North, we are on the front line. We deal with it every day, and we live with it every day. Permanent frost is pretty well gone. The earth is melting. Arctic is melting. As you have seen what's been happening in the Alaska, Northwest Territory, things in that nature, and we have a lot to worry about. This is coming. It's not going to go away. So we better get ready to start dealing with it and try to find a solution to the problem that is going to be risen from that climate change. Wildlife's going to be affected. We also have a great deal of interest from outside world, like China, India, for an example. And I do believe the India is building a submarine to be able to operate under the water, claiming their rights and things in that nature. So we have many things to worry about. There's many challenges that is in front of us that we have to deal with. I think it's a time now to start realizing agreement is good, but on the other hand, certain aspects of the agreement, we cannot live with that. Being extinguished, surrender, released, no. I don't think any government have the right to be able to come down and make that decisions on themselves. Like I said, the implementation in the field of justice, great deal problem, a lot of work to do. The problem we're having in the field of education, that's another issue that we're dealing with. Never enough money to implement what needs to be implemented. They don't even allow funds go towards the ethnic components of the field of education. Health issue, medical issues, that's another issue that we have to deal with. on a daily basis. And we need to make an improvement of that sector. There is many aspects of the agreement need to be revisited and to make some corrections. Hopefully, it would be good for both sides, government and also for us. Otherwise, we're going to end up spending money left and right without coming up with a tangible arrangement between ourselves and the rest of the society. Like I said, I'm going to be on the battle, I guess, tomorrow. So I'm going to save the rest of the things that I would like to make a point on. And as I mentioned to you earlier on, that I'm going to be concentrating on the implementation, and that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. There is a need to renew the agreement that we have. It works certain parts, some parts don't work. So we need to definitely get back to it and deal with it, and hopefully that we can come up with something better than what we got now, and probably would also help the relationship between the Aboriginal people and Canada, and also the government of Quebec, if we're going to stay within that line. I'm not sure anymore whether the people want to continue to create an agreement with government. It's a very doubtful at the moment. Our experience is not a good experience by way of dealing with the government. Governance issue is a big issue. That means they want to be the only one to be able to make the final line, final decisions on the final line. They want to be the only authorities. They don't want to recognize the authorities of the Aboriginal people within their land. It's our land, it's our games, we live with it, and we're going to continue to live with it. We intend to help ourselves and help the other Aboriginal groups, as you know, that they also have the same kind of an extinguishment, surrender, and release, such as NWT Inuit, such as all the other treaties, all the same, calling upon extinguishment from the Aboriginal people. That was recent, goes all the way back to 1912 Extension Act. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll engage with you again later on. Thank you.
So thank you, Charlie. That was really inspiring and refreshing as well, I would say. So that's all for tonight. Thanks everyone for coming here tonight and listen to our speaker and talk to each other. So tomorrow we have a full day of conference here at the same site, starting at 9 tomorrow until 5 p.m. So let's welcome you all tomorrow. Thank you.